On to Real Madrid. Right, we've pointed out Carlo's flaws. I'm a fan of Carlo. As I said, I think you screwed this one up.
What about the back three at halftime?
Are there more flaws?
Have you mentioned the back three at halftime? Because that was a great idea, the back three at halftime. That was, hey, boys, listen, why don't we play a back three for the second half? Yeah, coach? Yeah, back three. Because already you would assume that Carlo, Davide, when they prepared for the game, right? They thought that the starting 11 that they put at kickoff would win the game, right? That's how you prepare a game.
Yes, I would keep him.
How on earth? How did you think that this could win the game? How did you think that with trying to press, did they even try to press or pretending to try?
What are you going to press with Modric and Kroos? What are you going to press?
They tried because it was far too easy for Ter Stegen to find a free man or for Busquets to find a free man. It was embarrassing. It was really embarrassing.
I think it was about containment and hoping for something at that stage. Look, you want to go further and criticize him for decisions he made during the game, initially the beginning.
The back three was terrible at halftime. And if Torres is a better finisher, the fourth goal comes much earlier. Where does this
leave them, though, going forward? In the sense that we've already seen them bounce back from one humiliation. Look, I'm sure in terms of the climate and the environment, it's a Clasico. This is going to have fallout, Sid, obviously, and this is having fallout. Yeah. Is this bigger fallout than the Paris Saint-Germain first leg, given how poor they were and Messi missing the penalty and whatever? And, given that they have this lead in La Liga, is this comparable fallout? Is it bigger fallout?
No, I think the Paris Saint-Germain fallout was bigger because the Paris Saint-Germain fallout, obviously, at that point, was the possibility that you don't go any further in the Champions League. I don't think there's anyone who really thinks Real Madrid will lose this league title now, even after last night's result. Not least, of course, because Sevilla have just not taken advantage of the opportunities that they've been given over the last 6 weeks. I think I'm right in saying that Sevilla have drawn 7 of their last 9 or 7 of I think it's 7 of their last 9 or 7 of their last 10 and just dropped too many points. And this weekend was another example of that. That's done, that part of it. Barcelona, obviously, and Atletico Madrid can maybe rack up sufficient numbers of points to push Madrid.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Exactly. That's why the fallout's not so big.
So are you confident that he can bounce back and get them in the right frame of mind for Chelsea?
Yes, absolutely, because, of course, that's a one-off game and it's different. Now, I think the PSG game is interesting as well, because the fallout was greater, partly because I think the impact was... I said the fallout was greater, by the way. We're following morning now. Let's see what happens over the next week, because there's no game next weekend, whether this starts to fester a little bit. But the PSG game was different, I think, because there was a risk of them being knocked out. But then maybe the mitigating factor on that was there's a second leg. And if anyone likes to fetishize the idea of a comeback, it's Real Madrid. You sort of have this idea that it's our duty now to build towards a comeback rather than to say this is a disaster. But there's a third element here, which I think is really interesting. After the PSG game, there was this idea that how can you sit deep? How can you just sit deep and be so passive and let a team come to you? Despite the fact that Ancelotti, who I really admire for the fact that he's honest and he's direct and he's straight and he doesn't normally play games, although this weekend he sort of did when he talked about his various attacking options and never mentioned the Modric one. But he said after that game, he'd said lots of times this season, why wouldn't we play on the counter-attack? With the players that we've got, with the speed of Vinicius, why wouldn't we play on the counter-attack? This is fine. Play with a relatively low team. Play long, play into, not long exactly, but, play into space, play on the break, because we're really, really good at that. The PSG game was like an extreme and very poor version of that. And there was this sudden criticism. And Ancelotti started saying, yeah, we're going to try and play a bit higher up the pitch. I think we might even have talked about this on this podcast. We're going to try and play up higher up the pitch. We're going to try and push a bit. We're going to try and be, that Spanish phrase, protagonists of games. And I think we said on this podcast, you can't just change the way that you play halfway through a season. And I felt that shift to saying we've got to be a bit higher up the pitch was actually a response to criticism, as much as it was a response to an analysis of what they'd done. And I think it introduced actually a touch of uncertainty. Last night, I thought they partly paid for that.
I think he knows how to play that way. I know it's perhaps not ideally suited to it.
But I'm not sure if his team does. It's all right him knowing how to. I'm not sure that
we've seen flashes of it. This team obviously cannot do it without Benzema, right? You're not going to be able to do it.
It can't do it without Benzema, and I don't think it can do it with this three-man midfield. Look, if Kroos, Modric, and Casemiro is your midfield,
right?
You're not going to succeed pressing all game long. You're not going to.
Hindsight's 20/20. and I'll leave you
But
guys.
we knew it
I'll
before
leave
the
you guys
game.
with this
It
thought.
was
Since you know
exactly
everything
before the game.
2020.
I will leave you.
Not 2020. This has been discussed all year. We know
Exactly.
this is the
And we
case.
knew before the game, yeah.
I see what you did there. Said, no, Jules, why not do this then, right? Why not, since it's all about damage limitation, why not go into this game and say, oh, Barcelona are really good in midfield. Let me play Casemiro with a little bit of help from Camavinga on one side, Valverde on the other, Kroos and Modric pinging balls forward, Vinicius up front on his own. We'll just defend in the 6-yard box. I've already none of the fullback there in Nacho.
But Gabby,
It's a
in
Classico
part,
and you
in
are
part,
home.
that's what he was trying to
I see. Okay, all right, fine.
But don't tell me there's
part,
only
that's
two
what you
ways
do.
of playing.
do.
Don't
You look
tell.
at the midfield.
Without Benzema, there's 0 ways
But
of
that's
playing
not.
well.
That's rubbish. That's the biggest rubbish that I've ever heard. What? So, forfeit the game then? What? Without Benzema, you can't play better than what we saw.
Okay,
you
Professor
can't win?
Jules, how would you? I agree.
Start by playing a normal centre forward.
So you play Mariano up front,
But Mariano would actually run and make runs and press
and you still lose the game.
But it doesn't matter. At least you've tried. What did they do on Sunday?
They tried
didn't
to
even,
do something different, which didn't work.
Yeah.
But they didn't even try. They didn't try anything.
I
They
think-
should have lost 8-0 at home.
They maybe not 8, but I think they certainly could have lost.
But I
5
go
or
back
6.
to my point. How can you prepare your game and say to your staff and to your player in your dressing room, this is how we're going to play and we're going to win the game like this? It was impossible.
The element of surprise. He got it badly wrong, and look, Sid and I both think he's still going to go on to win the title.
No. Of course they're going to win the title. But we've said after the PSG game, if they think that Kylian Mbappé is the answer, they're so wrong. Because that team needs far more than just Kylian Mbappé or Karim Benzema to be able to compete with City, Bayern and Liverpool. And I'm not even talking this Barca Xavi team or the PSG team or even a Chelsea team. They're nowhere near.
Okay, this team
Here's
hasn't
another question, by the
acquired
way, just
anybody
to
of
throw
note
it in.
apart from David Alaba, I think, in the last 4 years, something like that. Who is the last big signing who had an impact before David Alaba on this Barcelona team, on this Real Madrid team?
Right, let me tell you who I think the last
Toni
player who had a
Kroos.
big impact
Maybe,
was.
yeah.
No, the last big player to have an impact was very briefly Fede Valverde. He slipped out the team again. When you look back at that Santi Solari period, and they discovered a freshness that they hadn't had before. They'd been very stale, and that freshness was almost all about Fede Valverde. But it was a really brief period. It was, what, 2-3 months? And the truth is, Valverde hasn't done. And this is part of the problem, of course. You've got players who, in theory, give you some of that energy, Valverde and Camavinga. But, of course, for as long as you've got Kroos, Modric and Casemiro, and this isn't a criticism of these three, the truth is, when you look at it, you go, who are my best three midfielders? Well, they are.
Right.
They are.
No.
And actually, to go to what you were saying, Gab, that idea of trying to add a midfielder, that's basically what he did yesterday. He thought that Modric could be both the forward and a midfielder. And then with Valverde in the middle, you get the energy that allows Modric to play like that. But what happened, of course, was Modric was so, what's the word in English? Descolocado. So kind of
out of place.
Out of place.
But it's more than just out of position. It's kind of like this sense that he sort of almost didn't understand what was happening around him.
Foreign object.
So kind of discombobulated that it fell apart.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.